The story revolves around the spoiled and entitled son of an oligarch, who believes the world revolves around him, and that rules don't apply to him. Having accumulated a long history of offenses and risking a jail sentence, his father takes drastic measures to correct his disruptive behavior patterns by any means necessary. Hey guys, welcome back to I Am Movies. Today we'll be looking at the 2019 Russian movie titled Son of a Rich. But before we jump into the details, make sure to show us some love by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now let's get right into it. The movie begins with Grisha, the son of one of Russia's wealthiest and most powerful men. He's a perfect example of a spoiled and entitled stereotype son. He constantly exhibits rude behavior and doesn't mind breaking the law, relying on his father's wealth and influence to bail him out. He leads a life devoid of any meaningful endeavors, spending his days indulging in frivolous activities. While partying one night, Grisha meets a pretty lady and decides to take her home. Upon entering his car, he immediately requests that she get down on him while he drives. Disappointed when she declines, he orders her out of his car and speeds off. Soon after, Grisha is pulled over by the police for speeding and reckless driving. As usual, he attempts to bribe his way out, but this time he encounters an incorruptible officer, Captain Yanov. Grisha rudely flings money at him and tries to drive off, but Yanov stands in front of his vehicle to prevent him from leaving. Undeterred, he drives with the officer clinging to the hood of his car, injuring him in the process. Grisha is subsequently arrested and put in a cell. His father, Pavel, intervenes to secure his release, and the police chief recounts Grisha's long history of disruptive behavior to Pavel, advocating for a strict approach to curbing his excesses as he may be risking a jail sentence. Grisha is pardoned, due to his father's benevolence towards the station, with the condition that his father cover the damages caused. Despite seeing his father visibly stressed by his troubles, he remains unremorseful, even requesting female company while in custody, showing the extent of Grisha's entitlement and disregard for authority. However, the police chief suggests locking him up for some time to see if he can be tamed, but Pavel, being too soft-hearted, dismisses the idea. After bailing him out, Pavel confronts Grisha aggressively, threatening to stop giving him money, but Grisha remains indifferent to his father's threats, knowing they're hollow. The following day, Pavel, who's stressed out from his son, confides in his friend Anastasia, a movie producer, about his struggles with Grisha's behavior, seeking solace. Anastasia suggests they visit her colleague Lev, who once worked with her on a horror movie. She reveals that Lev employs unconventional but effective methods to modify behavior. Later, they visit Lev's eerie residence and find him hanging from the ceiling, which startles Pavel. However, he soon realizes it's just an illusion. Lev questions Pavel to gauge his frustration level and determine the best disciplinary technique to employ. Lev, who is a master in special effects and new devices in filming, he can easily trick one's eye to believing something is real. He then proposed his idea to Pavel on how they will handle his son Grisha. One night, as Grisha leaves a club, he witnesses his car being towed away. He chases after the truck but is suddenly shot by a tranquilizer, causing him to lose consciousness. When he awakens, he finds himself in a stable, dressed in dirty, ragged attire reminiscent of the 19th century. Suddenly, a young man named Proshka urgently implores him to saddle the horses or face the wrath of their lord. The strange environment leaves Grisha utterly shocked and confused. While trying to make sense of the situation, a man named Avdey arrives and drags Grisha outside, berating him for not obeying orders. Alexei, the son of the landlord, appears and hands Avdey a whip to punish Grisha for disobeying orders. However, Alexei's father Dmitry interferes, asserting that he maintains the right to decide who gets whipped or not. Dmitry then asks Grisha why his horses aren't saddled yet, but Grisha is ignorant of what he's saying. So Dmitry commands Avdey to give him a whip, after which he instructs him to prepare the horse immediately, or face even harsher consequences. Proshka returns Grisha to the stable, urging him to prepare the horses, but Grisha leaps out of the window and makes a run for it. While fleeing, Grisha desperately seeks help from the villagers, asking for a phone and urging them to call the police, but no one understands what he is saying. They stare at him strangely and make snide remarks. He also encounters people who mention his name, questioning why he's running, leaving him even more confused and paranoid. Eventually, Grisha reaches what seems to be a border leading into the bush. He jumps over the bamboo fence and accidentally falls into a lake. Proshka finds him and takes him back to the village. Just then, a woman named Lyud appears and gives him dry clothes while scolding him for trying to run away. Grisha barks, demanding his clothes and underpants instead of the rags she's offering him. Proshka and Lyud try to pacify him by offering a strange fruit, but it only pushes him to the brink. He demands that they stop the act and provide him with modern gadgets and facilities, but they stare at him obliviously. Grisha is stunned when they reveal that the year is 1860. Soon after, Grisha is captured and sentenced to be hanged for his attempted escape. Fortunately, Dmitry's daughter, Aglaya, intervenes and pleads with her father to show mercy to the prisoners. It happens to be her birthday, and Dmitri grants her request, sparing Grisha's life. Proshka thanks Aglaya on behalf of Grisha and expresses gratitude. A bird-like drone flies above them, capturing the aerial view of the scenarios. Proshka refers to it as a wild bird looking to devour Grisha's flesh. It turns out that Lev has suggested they create a make-believe world where Grisha is made a peasant to impact discipline and modify his behavior. The operation is led by Anastasia, who utilizes her background as a movie producer to maintain the illusion flawlessly. Cameras are discreetly positioned all over the town, even in the trees, and a sniper is on standby to shoot Grisha with a tranquilizer if anything goes awry. Also among them is a psychologist who watches and monitors Grisha's progress. Everyone in Grisha's new world is playing a role, with the main actors discreetly wearing a communication device. Seeing his son's pitiable condition and the surreal scene, Pavel starts to question whether he made the right decision. However, Lev assures him that this is ultimately for Grisha's good, and that his son will leave this place a completely different person. Later, Grisha grapples with the sad reality of being a stableman. After much contemplation, he comes to terms with his current reality, convincing himself that he has traveled back in time. Back at the crew house, Alexei plays with his girlfriend Lisa, who is in charge of the horses and not actively involved in acting. Their fun time is soon interrupted when Lisa is asked to prepare the horses for their next scene. The actors receive the scripts for the upcoming scene. The director reminds everyone of the guidelines. Women should refrain from shaving their legs, while men should avoid shaving their faces. Additionally, items such as bras, underwear, earrings, and rings are strictly prohibited. Having accepted his fate, Grisha finds himself trapped in a harsh daily routine within the village. He sleeps on haystacks, with the stench of horses, and is forced to wake up before sunrise to tend to the horses. He uses the forest as his restroom, wears clothes without any underpants, and endures whippings whenever he displays disrespect or fumbles during a task. One day, the director decides to include a love interest in their script for Grisha to see if he'll care enough to fall in love. Later that afternoon, Grisha is taking a break from work when he finds Aglaya crying. He inquires why she's crying, and she confides in him, expressing her sadness over her father's desire for her to marry an old landowner because of his wealth. To her disappointment, Grisha shows no empathy, but instead suggests that she sees it as an opportunity, believing that since the man is old, he will die soon, leaving her with all of his wealth. Some days later, Grisha steals a chicken and requests that Proshka procure some tools for making soup. However, Grisha ends up consuming the chicken soup without sharing it with Proshka, who has done most of the job in preparing it. Soon after, they discover the missing chicken. All the slaves are brought under punishment, and the culprit is asked to confess. Once again, Grisha displays a lack of empathy and remains silent as Proshka is taken away to be whipped. Back at the crew house, Pavel seems to be getting impatient, and Lev suggests they introduce more gory scenes to evoke empathy from Grisha, which Anastasia disagrees with, leading them to get into an argument. Pavel inquires why Anastasia is in such a bad mood, and Lev reveals that she hates his gut. Pavel believes Lev must have stepped on her toes when they worked on the horror movie, but he is shocked to learn that when she mentioned they worked on a horror movie together, she was referring to the time they were legally married. Later, Proshka sees Grisha fishing at the lake and reveals the stripe scars on his back, but Grisha shows no remorse or pity. Instead, he behaves like a jerk and makes a mockery of the whole situation. While discussing with Proshka, Grisha witnesses Lisa getting off a horse and notices that she is wearing modern underwear when her skirt accidentally gets caught on the saddle. He compliments it at first, but then it strikes him, prompting him to chase after her and forcefully push her to the ground, attempting to see her underwear again to confirm what he just saw. Fortunately, other villagers intervene and rescue her, allowing her to escape. Grisha's lack of progress prompts Pavel to consider shutting down the entire operation, but their conversation is abruptly interrupted by a significant development. Grisha searches for Lisa to offer his apologies. This raises Pavel's hopes, and he decides to be patient and see where this leads. Initially, the village actors ignore him, as he shouldn't even know or interact with Lisa. But Lev sees this as an opportunity to make some headway, and decides to actively involve Lisa as Grisha's potential love interest. Lev instructs a villager to reveal Lisa's location. When he arrives at her house, Grisha finds her armed with a stick for protection, in case he tries something stupid. Grisha apologizes to Lisa, who heartily accepts his apology and warns him that she's still wary of him. Several days later, the commemoration of Ivan Kupala, a traditional holiday renowned as the most enchanting night of the year, arrives. Legend has it that spending the night celebrating with someone special will bind them together for the rest of their lives. Grisha takes it upon himself to add life to the party, as he instructs the musicians on how to play the instruments and urges the villagers to gather and dance in a circular motion around the fire. During this lively atmosphere, Aglaya approaches Grisha, expressing her frustrations with the idea of an arranged marriage and revealing her intention to drown herself in the lake that night. Grisha does not attempt to convince her otherwise, as he excuses himself and searches for Lisa. Grisha and Lisa spend the night together while he shares stories with Lisa about the technologies of the future, where he's from, revealing that he has traveled back in time. Their conversation is interrupted by Proshka, who repeatedly tries to divert Grisha's attention away from Lisa without success. As Grisha is engulfed in the moment with Lisa, Proshka then mentions that Aglaya was seen near the lake, leading Grisha to recall their conversation earlier and rush to save her and bring her back to the village. However, when they are inside, Aglaya makes advances at him, but he turns her down and goes off in search of Lisa. Unable to find her at the party, he decides to visit her house instead. Grisha desires to confirm the tradition by spending the night in Lisa's company. However, Lisa rejects his interest and shuts the door in his face. The following day, the crew decides that Lisa will continue to play Grisha's new love interest. She doesn't particularly like Grisha, and will not get intimate with him. But if being around her will make him a better person as per his father's wish, she's all for it. This development doesn't sit well with Alexei, who is bothered about his girlfriend getting entangled with Grisha. The crew introduces a new twist in the story where Alexei is found in the village center, having caused trouble, and injured the sheriff, feeling entitled as a nobleman. Surprisingly, instead of being repulsed by his irrational behavior, Grisha becomes jealous, as Alexei's behavior reminds him of his past life, assuming that Alexei had a thrilling night out. However, Grisha changes his mind when Dmitri suggests that he take his son's place and accept the punishment on his behalf. Initially reluctant, Grisha ultimately agrees after Dmitri offers him freedom and good food, and this time he shares the food with Proshka. Meanwhile, Anastasia and Lev start getting along better, causing Pavel to worry that they might reunite. However, Lev laughs at his ignorance, revealing that Anastasia loves him. This comes as a surprise to him, as Anastasia has always put up an act as she never fails to remind him that they're just friends with benefits. Grisha endures brutal flogging on behalf of Alexei. Once the punishment is over, Grisha goes to the landlord's house to request the necessary documents for his freedom. However, Alexei greets him instead. Alexei promptly throws him to the ground, kicks him and spits on him, while ridiculing him forever, believing they would truly set him free. Grisha attempts to fight back, clenching his fists, but decides to walk away peacefully, feeling disappointed. Grisha resigns to his fate as a stable boy. He also begins to spend more time with Lisa and gradually falls in love with her. One afternoon, during their walk, Grisha and Lisa spot a bird flying in an unusual pattern and heading downward. It turns out that the drone is malfunctioning. As the team prepares a sniper for a potential fall, Lisa tries to divert Grisha's attention by claiming that she has always considered the bird her guardian angel since childhood. Fortunately, the technicians regains control of the drone. Meanwhile, Alexei and Aglaya are both dissatisfied with the current situation. Alexei is bothered by his girlfriend spending so much time with another man, while Aglaya is frustrated over being replaced by Lisa. However, the two have ended up having intercourse inside a carriage, and are unexpectedly discovered by Grisha and Lisa, who happen to be passing by. Lisa is deeply hurt by her boyfriend's infidelity, while Grisha believes he witnessed an intercourse between siblings. After that, Lev fires Aglaya and Alexei. While Lisa's mood turns sour since then, and to uplift her spirits, Grisha decorates the stable with candles, and prepares a special dinner for them to enjoy together. Later on, they go stargazing, and Grisha confesses that he would marry Lisa if he were a free man. Reflecting on the deception regarding his freedom, he admits he wants to punch Alexei before. However, upon reflecting his old self in Alexei, he can now control his aggression. Grisha's maturity melts Lisa's heart, prompting her to kiss him affectionately. Meanwhile, in the real world, Aglaya appears on a popular talk show, revealing that Grisha has been abducted and is being subjected to torture for entertainment. The police make a public announcement about carrying out an investigation, causing panic in Pavel, who frantically attempts to shut down the operation before they arrive. Nevertheless, Lev implores him to be patient, as they still have one final test to see if Grisha will display an act of heroism. The crew decides to send a group of dangerous people called the Mongols to invade the village. While Grisha is spending time with Lisa, she unconsciously shares her true feelings for him, emphasizing that everything they have experienced together is real to her. Just then, Proshka arrives, announcing that the Mongols have attacked the village and urging them to return quickly. Grisha suggests they run away instead of going back, but Proshka reveals that if every villager is not present, the Mongols will set the village ablaze. At the village center, the Mongols are being offered a large food offering. However, the insatiable Mongol leader desires a woman and selects one from the crowd. The woman's father immediately steps forward to defend her, and due to the Mongols' respect for bravery, they allow him to engage in a duel with one of their soldiers for her freedom. Unfortunately, the father is defeated and beheaded. However, as he sacrificed his life, it is deemed sufficient payment for his daughter's freedom. The leader then chooses another woman, which is Lisa, who calls out to Grisha to rescue her. Despite her desperate pleas for help, Grisha becomes frightened and retreats. Realizing that their plan has failed, and with the police on their way, Pavel is prepared to abandon everything. However, Lev compels him to wait a little longer, as he believes there will be a positive outcome. When Grisha catches sight of the bird soaring above him, he interprets it as a signal from Lisa's guardian angel, and decides to rescue her. Mounting a horse, he goes after the Mongols, rescues Lisa, and escapes with her. Shortly after their departure, the police arrive on the scene. In light of Grisha's absence, Pavel, Anastasia, and Lev dismiss the police by claiming that they are filming a movie, which they readily believe due to the setting. The police leave without making any arrests. Meanwhile, Grisha and Lisa travel beyond the village boundaries and come across a petrol station, which leaves Grisha perplexed. Lisa is just about to explain the situation to him when he's suddenly hit by a tranquilizer. Grisha wakes up later in the hospital, where his father Pavel informs him that he has been in a coma for 3 months following a car crash. Pavel feigns ignorance when Grisha mentions the village and Lisa. Later, Grisha tries to resume his former partying lifestyle, but it no longer moves him. Being a new man, Grisha rights his wrongs by apologizing to Captain Yaniv and equally gifting his car to him. One night while at a nightclub, Grisha encounters Alexei and Aglaya. Much to his surprise, he approaches them and inquires about Lisa, but they pretend not to know him. Grisha, looking utterly defeated, apologizes for the confusion. However, the actors take pity on him and decide to clear up his confusion. The next day, they bring Grisha to the ranch where the crew has rented horses and where Lisa works. When he finally sees her again, he asks if what she said is true and if it has all been real for her. She confirms it with kisses, reigniting their romance. Weeks later, Grisha invites Lisa to his father's wedding to Anastasia. During the event, he expresses his gratitude to his father for involving him in the challenging experiment, which has ultimately transformed him into a better individual. Following this, there's an increased request of parents bringing ill-mannered and spoiled rich brat to the village, and Grisha actively assists in their process of rehabilitation. And this is where our story ends. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.